Howdy, 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 my name's Anachi Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the SP Foundation Wiki. Now, first things first, I decided for the rest of this week to only do SCP videos because I want the comics to be synced up so that episode 6 happens for all of them at the same time, and since I didn't do a Dreamkeepers last week, that series is off. So I'm just going to have Prequel and Avis Demon and Lackadaisy take a week off so that I can sync them all back up. That being said, I just realized that even though there's a Dr. Wondertainment Pretendo coming up in this episode, a few episodes from now, there's also Dr. Wondertainment's Ontological Six Balls. And if ontological means what I think it means, and it probably doesn't, that's going to be really weird. I'm also not 100% sure if I want to do one SCP per day as is the norm, or more than that. So, I guess we'll see how I feel. Now, this one we're going to be starting with Dr. Wondertainment Pretendo. Okay. So I was distracted by the fact that the light on my microphone freaked out, and I've been wondering for a while now if that's been messing with the videos, because this is the third time it's happened and the first time I've actually seen it. Do it. Stop that. Okay. Maybe it's because my leg was touching the cable. So, don't do it again. Anyway, we're going to be starting with Dr. Wondertainment Pretendo, going through Inaccurate History Book, Contagious and Numeracy, Electric Sheep, I wonder if androids dream of those, and Teleporting Destroyer. So, without further ado, it's Euclid, and it looks like a game system. Instances of SCP-591 are to be kept in a separate storage containment vault at least 500 meters away from any civilian population, essential civilian infrastructure, or other Foundation-controlled containment facilities. 591 are to be activated only during approved testing by Level 3 staff. Test subjects affected by 591 during testing are to remain in the area until 591 has been turned off. Outside of testing, 591 is to remain deactivated. Any new ZK class scenarios created by 591 will need to have a closed concrete dome structure built to contain it. These areas will also be designated Sector W #. W1 through 5 that exist are currently are to be monitored remotely and to be kept under clandestine 2 type status. Personnel or test subjects within a Sector W or I guess it's supposed to be number, are to remain there and be considered as lost collateral. Any devices suspected to be an instance of 591 are to be confiscated immediately. SCP-591 refers to a line of video game consoles originally developed as a counterfeit of the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES. 591 was labeled as Pretendo in 1985 and manufactured in Southeast Asia. Official records indicate that the Pretendo brand was bought by another company, Dr. Wondertainment, supposedly to establish themselves in the growing video game market. Pretendo was then re-engineered as a standalone console system that was capable of playing both NES games and Dr. Wondertainment's own line of 8-bit video game titles, hereby referred to as 591 number. Such 591 number titles include but are not limited to... Let's see, that is SCP-2424. Eskimo Mo, Wapum, Dusky's Adventures in Stadeland. You can do that on television. WLB Sports Deluxe, World War I Ace Trench Digger, Led Zeppelin Air Racers, Super Kick Karate 2010, Final Kick Karate Ultimate Greatness, Legend of the Swordmaster, and Reading Rainbow Sit and Listen. Includes Sword Controller. Ah, interesting. And these came out these came out in January of 86, February 86, April, May, July, October. That's a pretty good release schedule for NES games. Whenever 591 number is inserted into 591 and activated, it creates a minimized and isolated CK class reality restructuring scenario that resembles the game's intended content. Individuals inside these affected areas will usually assume the role of the game's main character/protagonist. This effect does not apply when a normal NES cartridge is inserted into 591. Because of the degradation and age of 591's electronic and computer components, the CK class restructuring scenarios, where'd he go? That resembles the game's blah 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 blah. Okay, there it is. Increased chance of becoming isolated ZK class reality failure scenarios of varying areas of effect. Unlike the ZK class scenarios, which revert after 591 is deactivated, the ZK class scenarios remain permanently as a fixed location. These locations have been designated Sector W1 through 5. Each ZK class scenario is different with varying and seemingly random parameters which include but are not limited to extreme gravitic fluctuations or absence thereof, time dilation, light speed significantly reduced or even halted, randomly placed cubic structures of varying elements in a solid state, including some actinoids regardless of half-life, absence of any kind of naturally occurring radiation, including cosmic background radiation, in areas that consist of a... Okay, sorry, the microphone keeps doing the thing. Areas that consist of perfect vacuum. Stop it! Sorry about that tap noise. This is just making me uncomfortable that it keeps doing that. The creation of non-linear spatial anomalies or similar transfiguration applied to pre-existing structures and/or blank. Based on previous testing, a ZK class scenario being generated from a CK class scenario has steadily increased from a chance of 1% to 32% over the last 28 years in Foundation custody. Based on seized Wondertainment Company records, there are suspected to be a total of 243 consoles and roughly 1,300 game cartridges still unaccounted for, including an alleged Pocket Pretendo that may or may not exist as a prototype. To date, no mass unit recall for 591 has been issued by Dr. Wondertainment. Level 3 access required. Addendum 1. Yeah. Victim of photograph of victim recovered from Sector W3 post-incident. There have been a limited number of cases involving some individuals physically surviving a ZK class scenario. These individuals recovered from these incidents are usually altered so drastically that they have little chance of survival outside of their respective sector number. There are also 2 reported cases of an individual leaving a ZK class scenario physically unaltered, but continue to assume the role of the game's main character pre-incident. Because of the effects of 591 during a ZK class scenario are largely unknown and becoming exceedingly unpredictable and dangerous to research, all further playtesting of 591 and 591 number is hereby suspended until further notice. That person seems to have, gained an extendo neck and at least 4 extra ears. Unless that's just earrings. They also don't seem to really be a fan of this? Oh, okay, looks like it's just glitchy lag. So because their leg and arms also seem to be doing it. Okay. There's going to be a little bit of a break in the recording real quick because I need to see whether or not it's actually freaking out with the audio when the light blinks. So I'll be right back. Okay, I am back and it appears that the light flickering is not actually messing with the recording at all. So next up is Inaccurate History Book. If it wants to load. Would you like to load any time now? Is it so inaccurate that it's not even going to show up? Or is something else happening? There it goes. Okay, so I was about to like stop the recording again and check to see if maybe my internet is on the fritz, because this will be a really bad time for my internet to do that. Anyway, the Inaccurate History Book is also Euclid. SCP-592 should be contained in Research Cell 1611-E at all times, locked in a steel box in the middle of a frosted glass containment cubicle. Also in the cubicle are a table, 2 computers, a standard-sized computer scanner, an internal network connection port, and 2 pairs of visual distortion goggles, which must be worn upon entering the cubicle so as to make 592 illegible. The first computer serves as an analysis machine, the second is a custom firewall. All devices have been modified with specialized software and hardware. See testing protocol for details. This looks like it's long enough for that to be in there. And the network port has been secured such that no device other than the firewall may use it. It is strictly necessary that the computers and scanner are turned off and unplugged after experimenting, and that they are only powered for the duration of the experiment. The front and back covers of 592 are to be covered in a black opaque tape at all times. The cell must be guarded continually to ensure 592 is not removed. Description: SCP-592 is a large hardcover book which exhibits no external qualities that could be considered unusual, but which can cause delusions, psychosis, changes in physical health and appearance, or even severe wounding when read. It is titled Chronicle of the 20th Century, and consists of 450 all-color printed pages. It is reported that it has a printed cover, no dust jacket, with the title of the book, the publisher, and a selection of illustrations from within the text. I just felt my table move. I'm not touching it, it just moved. That was probably my fridge. Let's see. The original cover is deep blue. The spine contains the title and publisher name and is left uncovered by tape. The cover page informs the reader that it was published by Interworld Press, 54 Blank Street, Chicago, Illinois, 1996. A company named Interworld Press has never been registered in the US, nor does the street listed exist. The text is a collection of newspaper clippings and short articles on major events from January 1900 to December 1995. Much of the first half of the text agrees with recorded events, but at some point no later than June 15, 1956, a date researchers have termed the point of divergence, POD. The text begins to diverge from known history. These divergences become more common and acute the further away from the POD the text is. Subjects reading from the text before the POD will report no ill effect and generally comment that the text is well written and seems very accurately researched. Subjects reading from the book after the POD understand the passage read as accepted truth and vehemently deny any suggestion that the text is in fact incorrect. The claims subjects make are often disturbing or shocking in nature. It also appears that a subject that has read passages from a certain year can recount events that are detailed in later sections of the book. It has been found that those born before the date which the test passage indicates or lived in or nearby the location of the event described may construct personal experiences built around the event and describe them as they would any other vivid memory. The subject will go to great measures to defend the reality of their story, often turning violent if under interrogation. Exposure to 592 may alter physical characteristics of the subject to conform with the events of the passages being read. This can vary from small changes in appearance or clothing to the infliction of severe wounds. For example, in one instance, a disposable dude, 94-920, produced a scar during an interview, stated that he picked it up during the data expunged. His widow, when presented with the scar located on his blank, was surprised, stating that she had not noticed the scar before. It has been found that once the subject discovers the world is inconsistent with their acquired memories, they begin to feel that the present reality is an illusion, a dream, or a deceit, often stating malevolent or government forces are at work in maintaining the illusion. Subjects who reach this stage enter into a profound and chronic psychosis. All attempts to treat this delusion have failed, the exact effects vary. Before POD, nothing happens. Approximately 2 months after POD, short-term confusion, no long-term. 2 years after POD, short-term confusion, long-term minor mental illness, development of tics, nightmares, minor paranoia episodes, and panic attacks. 10 years after POD, confusion and violent episodes in the short term. Long term, deeply ingrained delusion formed leading to debilitating paranoia, psychosis, and schizophrenia type disorders. Greater than 10 years after POD or earlier, subject forms a personal experience. Short term, confusion, violent episodes. Long term, acute psychosis and delusions, crippling agnosia, becomes withdrawn, high chance of suicidal or homicidal behavior, severe risk of immediate but variable physical change in subject. 592 was recovered during a narcotics raid in August 2006 on the property of Mr. Redacted, the leader of a controversial religious group called the Church of the True History. Despite being in possession of 592, Mr. Redacted is believed to have started the church for financial gain rather than revelation. The owner may have only survived exposure from 592 for almost 2 years because of his rampant drug use, which included methamphetamine, cocaine, and a host of opioids. Those psychedelics, especially DMT, are known to have been used and probably interacted with the effects of 592 more than the others. Redacted believed that his delusions came from his drug use, but noted that a year after exposure to 592, he found himself turning to drugs more often to hide away from the truth. In custody and deprived of his usual chemical relief, the suspect became comatose and died a week later. The circumstances of the acquisition has led to proposals to test 592 in combination with psychedelic drugs. See proposal blankety blank. Guess we won't be seeing that proposal. Addendum A. The chemical properties of 592 have been studied by Dr. Grayson and the chemical forensics team. Dr. Grayson reports that samples were obtained by means of cutting small squares of paper from the book while wearing distortion goggles. The squares were small enough to contain no more than one word. Squares containing portions of illustrations were covered by black opaque tape as soon as extracted. Our results indicate that the chemical properties of 592 differ very little from any other color publication. The paper primarily consists of cellulose from common woods, and the black and yellow inks are standard. It has been found, however, that some chemicals used in the cyan and magenta inks, while entirely known to science, are not normally used in the industry. An expert in inks and dyes has commented that the chemicals would be an inferior but acceptable substitute to those currently in use if certain metal elements were much scarcer, and therefore much more expensive than they are today. The testing protocol. 592 is under no circumstances to be read by a human unless that person is a subject of an authorized test. It is only to be analyzed by computer using the systems provided. The book is to be scanned on a per-page basis using the scanner provided. The scanner image is then sent to the analysis machine. The scanner and other devices are modified such that they can be used while wearing the visual distortion goggles. Note: researchers must pass Training Course 305S Intermediate Braille and Training Systems, or Training Course 10E, use of SCP imaging software before being approved to test 592. The analysis machine is modified such that it contains and supports no non-volatile permanent writable storage devices, such that it never stores a copy of the scanned image that may persist beyond the analysis phase. The image is destroyed from the system RAM as soon as possible, though standard secure memory flushing routines are through standard blah 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 blah. The firewall is configured to study incoming packets for characteristics of properly processed output and destroys the packet if an insufficient amount of characteristics are discovered. This prevents the transmission of text or images that have not been sufficiently obfuscated. As 592 is heavily illustrated, there are two analysis protocols. Analysis of text. This is a lot of stuff that I feel like I may not actually need to read. Analysis of text. The analysis machine uses industry standard optical characteristic recognition (OCR) systems to parse the text in the image and then destroys the image. The text file is then passed through a series of natural language processing (NLP) routines to summarize the text. The original text file is then destroyed and the summary is sent to the Secure Foundation intranet. The NLP routines analyze the passage using statistical incorporating databases of diverse English corpora, some details of other SCPs, a correct chronology of the events extracted from various texts, and a severely limited referential network of other entries in SCP-592. Note: efforts to increase the degree in which analysis references other events resulted in an incident whereby data expunged, resulting in 3 researchers being euthanized. See document 592 blank, which I guess is not going to be here. The summary is composed in such a way as to mitigate any possibility of exposure to the true material of the passage, but still provides useful and analytical details about the event described. An example, 592 SUMO 90777A. Note: lexical tokens from source database are presented in all caps. September 7, 1977, location Southern United States, 99% certainty. States, blank, 79%, blank blank, 11% or blank 9% certainty. Newspaper clipping. The passage is describing human conflict. The human conflict is of an ideological or religious nature. The passage seems 56% to be lamenting in tone. The passage contains the numbers 2000, 1977, and 16. A relation to event SUMO, SUM 010777C and event redacted is likely 78% certainty. It is certain 98% that the passage contains a reference to both SCP blank and SCP blank. Related incidents: Incident 592 blank, loss of limb following exposure to 592 article on war. Analysis of images. 592 contains around 200 illustrations. These are cropped from the scanned image as a part of OCR routine. The image is then subjected to a number of Fourier transforms and convolutions to obscure the resulting output from human recognition, while simultaneously analyzing its structure and provided a summary of its contents by statistical analysis. Record of the original image is then destroyed. An example report, IMG 098. Date: April 1st, 1963. Unknown bedroom with Western furnishings. Full color photograph. Subject: the image contains 2 adult persons standing, 1 human child sitting in a chair or stool, and SCP blank. With 100% certainty, the persons in the image should have facial features. With 100% certainty, the persons in the image do not have facial features. I wonder what SCP takes away facial features. I should know! I feel like I've already read it, but I don't know, so I probably haven't. And now it's time for the contagious innumeracy. Okay. What am I looking at? Complex spots in the mouth of an SCP-593 patient. I don't know what I'm looking for. I see cavities, though. You should get those looked at. Sorry. SCP-593 is to be stored under standard biosafety level 4 precautions at all times. This one's also Euclid, by the way. Use of a hazmat suit with self-contained oxygen supply is mandatory. Entry and exit to any lab containing samples of 593 must include multiple showers, ultraviolet light bombardment, a vacuum room, and regularly tested electronically sealed airlocks. Individuals suspected of infection with 593 must be isolated from the general population under Busul 4 protocols immediately, and kept in a darkened environment until the maximum infectivity and incubation periods have both passed, generally a period of 30 days. Medical treatment of confined 593 victims requires observation of Busul 4 protocols and the immediate incineration or immersion in acid of all materials with which the victims have had contact, along with any all biological waste produced. Description: 593 is a paramyxovirus of the genus Morbillivirus that exhibits a unique capacity for severe neurological damage after the onset of primary symptoms. The majority of its genome is identical to that of the measles virus, with a significant percentage of genetic material apparently derived from Rinderpest virus, aka cattle plague or steppe murrain. Its contagion rate is equal to that of measles, 90% in individuals without immunity who share a household with a 593 morbillivirus patient. This is a weirdly written sentence. Will develop the infection themselves within 30 days. Okay, okay. There was the dash there. Okay. Initial stages of infection are virtually identical to measles, beginning with a fever that may reach as high as 41 degrees Celsius. I don't know how high of a fever that is. Yeah, I don't know how high of a fever that is. Microphone's doing the thing again. Koplik spots appear on the victim's buccal and lingual mucosae early in the infection. Unlike standard measles infections, however, the spots remain visible for 2 to 3 days. How long do they last for measles? Several days after the fever begins and conjunctivitis sets in, the victim's body is quickly covered in a generalized erythematous maculopapular rash that spreads from the head to the feet in less than a day. Ocular sensitivity to light also sets in around this time, and victims not confined to darkened areas or otherwise protected from light may suffer consequences up to and including total blindness. The rash generally turns from red in color to dark brown several days after eruption, at which point the neurological sequelae and variability sets in. The progression of symptoms begins with irritability and erratic behavior, which may be mistaken for natural reactions to an unpleasant infection and confinement situation. However, myoclonic spasms and seizures swiftly follow. EEG examination of victims shows widespread cortical dysfunction. Physical examination of victims' brains shows involvement of data expunged and significantly elevated gamma globulin teachers. The true nature or signature of 593 morbillivirus, however, lies in its permanent neurological effects. It completely destroys the portion of the victim's brains that deals with the concepts of numbers and mathematics. Its surviving victims literally cannot distinguish between 2 and millions, or perform even the most rudimentary addition, let alone more advanced calculations. Counting accurately even from 1 to 10 is only possible by dint of memorization. If asked to determine whether one number is larger than another, survivors cannot give an accurate answer. Oddly, survivors are seldom, if ever, distressed by this fact unless forced by experimenters to work on mathematical problems, at which point they become defensive and often exhibit aggression. 593 was discovered in 2000-something at blankety blank 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 in the form of several pressurized containers attached to the central HVAC equipment for the main trading floor. The initial outbreak was swiftly contained and damage control measures taken in the media, but the origin of the virus remains unknown. Investigation of all labs known to the Foundation to be capable of genetically engineering such an organism is underway. Addendum. Despite its genetic similarity to measles and rinderpest, no vaccine currently exists for 593. Attempts to attenuate the virus strength for use as a live virus vaccine have so far proved useless. Killed virus vaccines do not appear to trigger the body's immune response. Immediate containment and isolation of all possible victims is recommended, as well as immediate investigation of outbreaks of measles in populations where measles vaccine's uptake is normally historically high. Alright. That was a whole lot of scientific words just to say that it makes you lose the ability to math. Now let's check out the electric sheep. Well, it looks like a sheep. I wonder if it runs on electricity. or if it's even real. 594 is kept at Bioresearch Sector Blank, located on 54 kilometers squared of mountainous rangeland located 35 kilometers from Blank, Alaska. Officially, Sector Blank is listed as a munitions factory and testing facility. The perimeter fences and access gates are monitored remotely at all times with 2 level 2 guards posted at each gate in 8-hour shifts. All fencing enclosed paddocks have static dischargers placed at 2 centimeters intervals. Main research enclosures and pens are to be cleaned on a daily basis to avoid buildup of excrement and allow for necessary repairs. Due to possible electrocution hazard, the following procedures are to be observed when interacting with 594. All metallic items and electrical devices, including wristwatches and jewelry, must be removed and placed within protected plastic containers prior to donning protective gear. Or provided plastic containers. Prior to entering the paddock, staff are advised to wear at minimum Tesla armor, heavy-duty work gloves, ear protection goggles, and rubber-soled boots. Also, staff are advised to keep on hand tobacco products, specifically Skoal-style chewing tobacco or pipe tobacco, candies, dried fruit, or good quality alcohol as a treat for 594-1. Holding pens and fences are to be kept properly maintained at all times. Wool of mature adults 2 years or older is to be kept shorn at a length of 2 millimeters by ceramic shears twice yearly and baled in anti-static bags, with strict adherence to guidelines set out in Document 594S. Under no circumstances are shears with electrical motors to be used for shearing. Exceptions are 1 and 2, who are to be rude, loose wool plucked by hand, as per guidelines from Document 594-1-2A, and no attempts at shearing be made on either animal. Due to the nature of 594, specifically 2, all personnel with contact to 594 and its byproducts may be subject to full cavity searches, and all personnel must submit to pat-down search/metal detector scan before leaving the enclosures. Feeding of the approved formulated green hay mix outlined in 594F is to be done twice daily with fresh water and mineral licks made rarely available around all parts of the enclosure. Foraging and grazing outside of regular feedings is to be carefully monitored. Discovered in the Altai Mountains during a routine fact-finding mission, 594 is a flock of feral sheep and an unknown breed resembling a wild Argali sheep in general build, with a thick fleece like that of a domestic merino, around 135 centimeters at the shoulder and weighing 195 kilograms on average. Gestation and reproductive cycles are similar to most domesticated sheep, with ewes reaching sexual maturity at 6 to 8 months of age and rams at 4 to 6 months. They enter a rut twice annually, typically in late spring and early autumn, but breeding can occur year-round. Most ewes give birth to a single lamb or twins, with triplets being exceedingly rare, 2% of all recorded births to date. Only documented case of triplets which survived to full maturity are 594-1 and his siblings 2 and 3. General coloration ranges from pure white to dark blue-gray wool with a metallic sheen appearing once they've reached full maturity, typically 2 years of age. Only 3 animals, the aforementioned triplets, display atypical wool colors. Both sexes have horns, with uncastrated males having spiraling horns measuring 190 centimeters in length, and the largest documented span belonging to 2 at a length of 247 centimeters, 0.4. Females and wethers have curved horns measuring 20 centimeters. The horns, hooves, and wool of older animals have unusually high concentrations of ferrous metals, along with traces of gold alloys. Examinations of newly butchered animals have revealed that 594's skeleton also has large amounts of ferrous metals present within the bone matrix. The sheep are highly aggressive and territorial in nature and often attack unfamiliar personnel without warning or provocation. They will continue to behave in this manner until steps are taken to properly placate 594-1, which is normally done by giving it treats such as tobacco or candies. Once this is done, the flock will become docile and behave like normal domestic sheep. The exceptions to this pacifying behavior are 2 and 3, as outlined in the addendum on each. In contrast to adults, lambs are typically very easy to handle and display curiosity towards new objects and people in the paddock, often attempting to play with personnel but will flee if threatened. The sound of a panicked lamb will cause nearby adults to attack violently, so caution is to be taken not to spook lambs. Lambs also show a tendency to form attachments to certain humans, often following them around the paddock and begging for food or attention. This is especially noticeable among bottle-reared lambs. Such attachments often last even after sheep has reached maturity, as seen in the case of 2 and Dr. Merriweather. At present, the flock numbers 1,314 mature sheep plus 448 lambs and immature sheep, with selective culling of unwanted animals annually after the rutting season to maintain these numbers. The only animals exempt from culling are 1, 2, and 3, or any lambs exhibiting similar traits. Deviation from the 13-14-4-4-8 pattern for more than a year's time will cause all mature RAMs to data expunged. Failure to follow the pattern for 2 years during preliminary research results in the deaths of blank disposable dudes and blank researchers, as well as near breach of containment by 2. The defining characteristic of the sheep is that they are able to generate a substantial amount of static electricity simply by the friction caused by daily activities. The resultant charge is typically discharged at random, with mature specimens producing arc flashes that have been recorded at 1000 amps or more. Due to the electrocution hazard, personnel interacting with 594 are advised to follow guidelines fully outlined in Document 4H. When faced with a threat, the flock will become highly agitated, and mature youths will attempt to form a ring around any lambs, rubbing their bodies together to generate an even greater static charge between them. Because this defensive behavior is especially pronounced when ewes are birthing, it is a standard procedure to isolate all pregnant ewes and newborn lambs from the rest of the flock until a week after birthing. In addition to defense against predators, rams also appear to use their discharges as a type of dominance display, with the older and stronger rams able to produce more powerful discharges during their dance. When in rut, rams will often fight them against themselves, performing the stomping dances prior to engaging rivals. These dances are often accompanied by excessive discharges, resulting in a rapid ionization of air and giving 594 its local name, Thunder Sheep. Ground sensors have also detected telluric currents during these dances, with older rams creating extremely complicated patterns that often resemble data expunged. Free martens, ewes which are behaviorally masculine and lack functional ovaries, will also perform stomping dances, but the patterns produced, while equally as complicated, show a marked difference from those created by rams. To date, wethers have not been observed to engage in this behavior. Another trait exhibited by 594 is its inherent ability to walk on air, or more accurately levitate themselves at a distance on average of 2 to 4 meters vertically via manipulation of electromagnetic fields. Lambs and younger animals have a tendency to lose control mid-flight, often falling from high cliffs, which can result in death of the animal. This may be the way the flock culled out weaker animals in the wild, but more research is needed. Research has been done on the properties of 594 wool, milk, meat, and horn. Results of these tests are pending full documentation. However, the meat, milk, and resultant dairy products have proven to be fit for human consumption. Approval to include Thunder Mutton and various cheeses made from the milk of 594 in the Foundation's standardized menu is still pending. Data pending. So it says all that about the difference between 1, 2, and 3, and none of the information about them is even in here? Why do that? That's almost as bad as the freaking slime that can't go near dead bodies. And that brings us to the teleporting destroyer, which is Euclid. So it's just a whole episode of Euclid. The unsatisfying Euclid. SCP-595 is currently stored in either enclosed dry dock 20-something blank Virginia, or a secure Foundation warehouse district in Philadelphia, depending on 595's current state. Okay. Both sites are restricted without level 3 access clearance or higher. Access to 595's interior is restricted to specially selected disposable dudes or mobile task forces with approval from either site's local administration. Due to the nature of its effects, it is imperative that no personnel or sensitive equipment be located within the storage sites after it has been dormant for over 2 hours. Normal research activities may resume at one of the 2 sites after its documented effects have subsided. So, SCP-595 is a Cannon-class destroyer escort DE blank USS blank, commissioned by the United States Navy in late 1942. It is no different from any other vessel of its class, with the exception of several munitions magazines filled with data expunged of unknown manufacture. These devices cause the vessel and a limited surrounding area to be permeated with abnormally high levels of electromagnetic radiation. Periodically, the devices induce a tremendous spike in the amount of electromagnetic radiation, resulting in effects outlined in Document 1. While these spikes are mostly regular in their timing, they can result in severe damage to surrounding equipment and personnel if safety precautions are not strictly adhered to. The ship is tied to reports of a secret US Navy experiment, Project Philadelphia, purportedly investigating principles of teleportation and possibilities of camouflaging naval vessels by bending light around them, rendering them invisible to the naked eye. The failure of the experiment resulted in the loss of nearly the entire crew. As they were unable to contain it, the US Navy agreed to turn SCP-595 over to the Foundation for further study. Unfortunately, information related to the experiment has been made public. Cover-up efforts are detailed in an addendum below. Document 1. 595 self-contained blank devices are known to cause varying spikes in radiation levels at regular intervals approximately every 3 to 4 hours. When the Foundation acquired 595 from the United States Navy, little was known of the device's side effects as the Navy had already destroyed almost all relevant documentation. As such, testing commenced in earnest, producing the following known results. The foremost effect of 595's tremendous levels of electromagnetic radiation is that the ship can exist in one of two locations, varying randomly and requiring two teams of researchers to fully monitor 595. The vessel has been observed with lower bursts to remain translucent and in some cases almost completely transparent to the naked eye while remaining in place at its current dry dock. Any personnel located on or within a radius of blank meters of the vessel while it is undergoing a radiation burst can be subjected to the following effects. Personnel not located aboard the ship but still within its area of effect display effects similar to that of 595 itself, sometimes reappearing in place but sometimes showing up at the other secure facility. There have also been occasions where these personnel have disappeared completely and did not reappear in any Foundation-controlled sector. An incident of this nature occurring in 19 blank resulted in the loss of blank US Navy personnel, prompting the current containment agreement. Persons in physical contact either on deck or inside with 595 are subject to the effects listed above, but with markedly increased danger. These properties were discovered when Agent Blank was trapped on the ship, faded out of sight, and upon returning, was fused to the bulkhead he had been standing near. Inspections showed a perfect molecular bond of tissue to metal, cleanly severing the entire lower portion of the agent's abdomen, which protruded from the opposite side of the bulkhead. When questioned, the agent reported feeling no pain but was unable to move his lower extremities and exhibited signs of extreme nausea and early stages of acute radiation poisoning. Attempts to recover the surviving portion of the agent's body from the ship ultimately resulted in his death. During the same incident, 3 disposable dudes had been assigned to clean the engine room. Most of D-12,074 was found in a crankshaft with his legs fused to the ceiling over a meter away from him. D-23,574 was fused to a deck plate, and its lower extremities were never located, nor was D-75,224, who simply vanished. Other cases have seen personnel molded into solid steel doors while still conscious, or alternatively missing limbs that are incorporated into the structure in other locations of the vessel. Standard operating procedure calls for termination of these victims, as all report efforts to sever them from the ship have resulted in death of the affected. Addendum. As of the late 1950s, numerous books and eyewitness accounts have surfaced in attempts to shed light on the Navy's failed experiment, further complicating containment procedures. Thanks to the efforts of well-placed field agents, the Foundation has managed to mostly discredit these sources, leaving the experiment as a well-known but officially debunked urban legend. All published accounts have been doctored to indicate that DE-173 USS Eldridge as being the test bed for the experiment, thus drawing attention away from 595. All previous records of the experiment have been successfully obtained or were destroyed by the United States government. Another addendum, they're not numbered for some reason, attempts to disable the devices located within 595 have all met with failure, as the shutdown procedures documented in Manual Blank 3A require more than the allotted safe margins of time. The use of electromagnetically shielded remote vehicles is currently being investigated. Okay, so, that was a whole episode worth of Euclid things. An episode that I had to split into parts because I wasn't sure if it was actually recording all of the dialogue. So that being said, this has been Anachi Sasuke. This is episode 128 of Let's Read the SP Foundation Wiki, and the next one we'll be reading Cursed Regeneration Statue, the mother of them all, Sentient Color, Uncharted City, and then moving on to the 600s for That Guy. So, thanks again for watching. If you liked it, a like or subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you need to do either one of those things, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later!